And welcome back to Art with Mr. Z.
Art with Mr. Z.
In today's demo, I want to talk a little bit about drawing machinery. One of the pictures that you had the option of working from was this lovely Honda bike. I believe it's a CB750K. It might be some derivative model of that. So I started it a little bit, and you can see that the wheels are no walk in the park. I mean, this took me a good amount of time. So if you're choosing the motorcycle, you are in for quite a lot of work in certain parts of it. So like here, in here, and in here, you're going to have a lot of work to do. But the nice thing about the motorcycle is that there's also a lot of kind of free space around the outside where you don't have to worry too much about tiny details. So again, as with doing any of these projects, what you really want to watch out for is you want to make sure that you are letting yourself trust what you see and don't try to draw what you think the thing should look like. For example, you might have an idea in your head of what a tire looks like, and you're going to like draw something that looks like your idea of a tire, but you're not basing it on what information you're getting from each individual square, and that's really important. So for example, if I'm looking at just this square right here, that is a whole bunch of information about how the lights and darks are moving across from the top of the square to the bottom, how many dark areas cut across to show the grooves in the tires, and I'm really letting myself trust that process when I draw it. So each one is rendered carefully and slowly. And what I want to do today is just kind of take you through the process of how I do a square like that with so much detail. So I've gotten this much of the front wheel here. I think I'm going to come down and do this one here, which contains the hub of the wheel. So I'm looking at this square right here, which is actually catty-cornered from this one, which I already worked on. So I'm working into this square. I've got my drawing on the left now, just so that you can kind of see the whole thing. And if I go in really closely, I can just sort of break this square down into its largest shapes first. So the first thing that sticks out at me is the fork coming in from the top left. And I just want to lightly draw the outline of that. And I'm paying attention to where it intersects the edge of this box. See that? Everything has a shape to it that you can copy. And every shape has a location within the grid square. That's a really important thing to keep in mind. So I've just copied this little mechanism here. There's that little hole in the middle that probably goes through to the axle. One cool thing about doing this kind of work is you actually pick up a lot of interesting technical terminology as you start to explore and ask yourself questions about what it is you're drawing. So for example, if you're working on the Honda motorcycle and you might be wondering, what is this thing that I'm drawing right here? You could find a diagram of it online and just look it up and learn the names of these bike parts, which could be a useful skill later on in life. You never know. When I was in college, I got a job with somebody who became a very close friend of mine, tearing down or taking apart vintage Japanese motorcycles like this one. And there was a time when I probably could have taken this bike apart and put it back together. But I've lost a lot of the memory of that knowledge. So I am just drawing the outline of some of these components. I'm working on this part right here, which I know on a bicycle is related to something called the cassette, kind of like a cassette tape, but on a motorcycle it might be something else. And that has all these little bolts on it around the outside. So I want to be sure to render those. There's one here. It's kind of a little thing right there. And there's one here. Then there's this disc that holds the spokes in together. And I can see exactly where that's intersecting. It has these little holes, each one of which is connected to a spoke. And I am trying to draw the correct number of them. Although, of course, on your drawings, I'm not going to be going around and counting each one, but I would like you to try to render this correctly. So then we've got a spoke coming off here like that. We've got one behind it, one or two. And remember, these are going down into this box below here, so I'm not going to draw those. There's definitely one coming off like this. And for each spoke, I'm actually drawing two lines. One line to represent either edge of the spoke. You know what? That's in the wrong place. That should be further over to the right. And I wouldn't worry about the texture of the background. I'm just going to expect you to fill that in with a solid. Do yourself a solid and do me a solid and just fill it in solid. So now I've got like a line drawing outline, and I'm ready to just kind of start filling that in with the values that I'm seeing in this square. So I'm going to stay zoomed in on this while I do that. And one thing that I also want to be sure to add is actually the outline of the other side of the rim here. So I want to start with the darkest values first because I think that makes it easier. And I'm going to continue as I get into lighter values. And I can see that a lot of the highlights are happening up here in this corner of the box. If I go over here and look at it, up here is I've got highlight here and I've got highlight here. So I want to make sure that everything is kind of dark until these areas of white happen. So there we go. You can see it kind of starts to resemble that. If I do a cross comparison between the two of them just real quick offhand, I can kind of see where I need to go darker. Like way in here perhaps, and possibly also in here, to really just kind of like match the overall values that I'm seeing between the two. And I think if you do that, you're going to be okay. So best of luck with it. I'm going to show you the whole thing so far, my little collage that's coming along. And I hope this is going to be providing a kind of good demo of like all the gridded drawings that will be available to you. So I'm really looking forward to see what you come up with.